Imagine living as a child in the 1940s. At any time, you could contract a disease that would ravage your body so badly that you would need assistance just to breathe. Like, until 1908, no one knew the cause of this disease. Quarantines were ineffective, and if you had the disease, there was no treatment other than just trying to survive it. This disease was so prolific that even the most popular president of all time, Franklin D. Roosevelt, had it, and it paralyzed him as an adult. This disease, of course, is polio, and through vaccines, it's been eradicated, but until then, until 1952, when an effective polio vaccine was created, there was over 58,000 cases of polio nationally and over 1,000 deaths a year because of it until this disease was eradicated almost entirely in the following decades after the polio vaccine was developed. And because of this, having polio nowadays is almost a joke. That it's like, that's a joke, that's something that you would just get in the 1920s. And because of this, people have become almost lax with vaccines, and some people even consider them harmful because they do not understand the effects that they had on the population beforehand and truly how powerful and useful they are. And that's why today I would like to try to persuade you that vaccines should be mandatory, like, for all citizens of the United States. I'll explain this in 3 different ways. I'll explain it through the benefits of vaccines, through the consequences of not getting vaccinated, and the misconceptions people who are against vaccinations have and why they're wrong. The first benefit to being vaccinated, of course, is that less people will die or get sick because they're immune to it already. And this is the biggest thing, obviously, but another one is that people who can't get vaccines because their immune system is already so weak, even a vaccine could harm them, is without vaccines they would be completely helpless against these diseases because of something called herd immunity. If the people around them do not have the disease, obviously they're not going to get the disease, or their chances are much lower. Some consequences of not having a vaccine include, obviously, that more people will get sick because the more people have the disease, the more people they're going to spread it to. And obviously, some of these diseases are really terrible, and nowadays we might have the technology to quarantine them off, but it'd be better not to. Another one is, again, some people are not strong enough, or their immune systems are too reactive that they will not be able to take vaccines, and so those people will die off even much faster than normally they would. And some misconceptions that people have about vaccines. One is that that they contain poisonous things such as aluminum and mercury. This is a very old misconception and quite honestly a false one. Not only has mercury not been in vaccines for several decades because of just concerns when they were first, well, it's true that early vaccines did contain some mercury and aluminum. It was in such small amounts that you would just, like, it was less than the amount you would consume just by breathing in dust. It was so small, and it was used to sanitize vaccines. So it only had that, was specifically what we wanted it to, which means more people could get them because they could be stored for longer periods of time. Another one is that vaccines can make you sick. And this does have more validity than most claims because you can get symptoms from a vaccine. It's very rare, and it's usually because of immune response, of having an overreactive immune system, much like how you would have an allergic reaction to peanuts or shellfish, or even water in rare cases. And so, even though these symptoms do manifest, they usually do not last long. And the number one most contested anti-vaccination argument is that vaccines cause autism in children. This is probably the most ridiculous claim of all. Not only was there only ever one study that claimed this, that doctor was later both proven, he was later abandoned by the other researchers in that study, and he himself was discredited and his license was taken away because the claims are so unfactual that they don't, like, there's no proof at all to disprove them. It's just a lie, essentially, and that man is discredited. In conclusion, vaccination should be mandatory because of all the benefits that it has to humanity, such as general health, herd immunity, and the sheer consequences of not vaccinating are great. The consequences will lead to so many preventable deaths. It's almost insulting not to consider this. And that the anti-vaccination arguments are so weak that they are also nearly laughable because of how incorrect they are. Yeah. Thank you.
So, Olivia, some words for Abraham.
Like in the beginning, he kind of stutters a little bit and makes weird pauses. And your voice is kind of monotone, but maybe it's like supposed to be because it's sad, I'm not sure. The lead up to the disease is good, you use good evidence. But it takes a while to hear what you're actually trying to persuade us about. You just talk about polio for a while. But you used good hand gestures and like big words, but you explained them really well, and you had a really good conclusion.
All right, well, I like the visualization at the beginning. I think that it adds a little bit of drama to what you're talking about, and polio as a risk is discussed. It's a good illustration about the importance of vaccination. I thought that worked pretty well. You got to your purpose statement, and I could tell immediately that what it was that you're asking us to believe and support. One of the things that I think is missing here is some reason to believe that vaccines aren't already mandatory. It seems to me that kids have to get vaccinated before they go to school. Are they not being vaccinated? Have people let it go? Are there some things that they're not required to get vaccinated against? Are there exceptions and people are taking advantage of those exceptions? That's, I think, the need argument that needs to be developed a little bit more. Otherwise, you're really depending upon hypotheticals during the rest of the speech, and I think that there are probably some practical examples of things that you could point to as well. There's a good preview of what the supporting structure is going to be, so it's going to be straightforward, and in fact, I almost shouted out the third point to you as you were struggling to remember what it was I wanted to say. Misconceptions, because you got there and it was, I know you had it because you said it at the beginning of the speech. So I'm glad that you found it yourself, and that's one of those things that helps when you've got an organization. You're going to be able to get those things back into your presentation. The idea of herd immunity, I think, needs to be explained a little bit more clearly, but I know the point that you're trying to make there. I think there are other ways that you could show, for instance, that there are potential dangers from not getting vaccinated. We've got plenty of examples that are contemporary relating to some of the diseases that we do have vaccines for that people are now getting because they didn't get vaccinated. The most typical one that people talk about are whooping cough or measles, for instance, as illustrations of that point. And so there's data on these points that I think you're missing an opportunity to exploit and make it more concrete. The misconceptions argument, that's an important point if people are not getting vaccinated. But you haven't really talked about that people aren't getting vaccinated, and I think that that's the thing that was missing, like I said at the beginning of the speech. But you addressed some of those misconceptions pretty effectively. I know you sound like you were a little frustrated that you couldn't remember the name of the doctor who did the study that got discredited, but I think the fact that you referred to the one study that ever found a link on this, that it was largely discredited by the people who participated in the process, and that the one doctor who stood by it is and now in fact lost his license to practice, that seems to undermine any believability in that pretty effectively. I thought there was a very solid summary at the end of the presentation. And that also helps make your point pretty effectively. The delivery issues, some of the things are the same things that I've said to you before. You just have a quiet voice and demeanor, and that's okay. I do think sometimes you need a little bit more variety in the delivery so that it doesn't come across as a monotone, and that might be a pacing thing that you can do, or maybe change the volume a little bit. But I didn't think it was a huge drawback. It just, that's something that you could do to improve. I think your eye contact is generally good, not great, but good. You do look up at us, but you can tell frequently that you're trying to think of the next thing that you're trying to talk about or remember what it is you're talking about. But I think that you're engaged with us. I'm going to disagree with Olivia about the gestures. I think you have very good gestures with one hand. It seems, I don't know if you got a shot in your left arm and so it's not moving, but it did seem a little odd that all of your gestures are with your right hand and your left hand stays at your side the whole time, kind of like it's not functioning. And I don't know if you're having a problem today, that could be the issue, or if you just are thinking, I got my right hand, that's doing enough, and that's, I think you need to be more completely engaged. That was just something I noticed. It seemed a little odd. Right? Okay, there we go.